We have heard the joyful sound. Jesus saves, spread the tidings all around. Jesus saves, bear the news to every man. Like the sea waves, onward till the Lord's command. Jesus saves, give the wind a mighty voice. Jesus saves, let the nations now rejoice. Jesus saves, shall salvation full and free. I still the deepest cave, is the song of victory. Jesus saves, Jesus saves.
Good morning. Good to see everyone. Everybody hear me all right? We're kind of scattered about here this morning. If you haven't noticed, Steve's not here this morning. He's away at a meeting. He left us on our own again. Good thing this is such a well-disciplined, well-trained, super-oiled, confident class. So all I have to do is stand here for a while. I want to welcome everyone here this morning. We're glad that you're here. If you're visiting, we're very glad that you're here. I want to remind everyone that coming up in October, we're having an attendance drive for Sunday school class, for Bible study. So look around and see whoever's not here. You can be the courageous one, call them up and tell them, come on over. Tell them how good it is. Let them know. Everybody have a good evening last night? Good rest? Ready to get up and go? Kathy and I had a great evening, kind of out of the ordinary for us. We were at the UT game. It was family and friends day, I guess, there at the park. And, you know, Trey is attending there now, so we're part of the family. And then also they had all the area high school cheerleaders, which Hannah is one of those. They were all involved with this gigantic cheering section on the field with the college cheerleaders and all the high school cheerleaders. It was amazing. And we could see everything from where we were. We had an eagle-eye view. We were so high, I would have been totally comfortable with a parachute on my back. At times it felt like I could use some oxygen because the air is thin up there. But it was great. We had a good time. If you want to pick up your Bibles and turn to chapter 5 in Matthew, that's where we're at. We're not quite as far along as what Tim read for us. I guess we've been dragging our feet some. We're going to pick up in verse 27, chapter 5, verse 27. A lot of good things in Matthew chapter 5. We've already covered the Beatitudes, and we've talked about the idea of who's supposed to be the salt and who's supposed to be the light. We've talked about the idea that the law was not being abolished but was being fulfilled. Jesus said he came to fulfill the law. We talked about murder and what Jesus had to say about that. What did we learn in regards to murder? Okay, not supposed to do it. That's true. Anything else? We can be forgiven from it. Okay. Well, it's not the point I had in mind. Okay, that's the point I had in mind. That's the big transition that Jesus was pointing out to these very righteous Jews. was that you don't have to kill somebody to be guilty of the same judgment. All you have to do is hate somebody and dwell on that. And you can be guilty of the same judgment as those who kill somebody. Hate is equal to the same thing. The old adage that you still hear people say today, you can't arrest me for what I'm thinking, right? Well, Jesus is turning that around, and he's pointing out that what you're thinking is very important. The old law was given not only to stop certain actions from happening, but it was to change their thinking. The plan was that they would grow and become more pure, better in thought. That's a good point, Patty. I think we're going to come to that idea in just a little bit down further in the lesson, but it is very important what we're thinking. So the self-righteous Jews that Jesus was speaking to were kind of in shock and awe, and it was being pointed out that they were really not so righteous as they thought they were. And the same for us. If we look at this and we really take this to heart, we realize we are not as righteous, we are not as pure as other people may think we are. I mean, they see us, we go to church 2 times a day on Sunday, we go 3 times a week. We're busy in church activities, and people think, wow, he's really a great guy. But they don't really know us. They don't really know what we're thinking. We don't even sometimes be honest with ourselves as to what we're thinking. So we're in the same boat as those self-righteous Jews. We've got some things to learn ourselves. Matthew 5:27, you've heard that it was said, do not commit adultery. That's one of the 10 Commandments. You can find it in Exodus 20:14. You shall not commit adultery. And then in verse 17 in Exodus 20, it's backed up with like a separate commandment, not to covet your neighbor's wife. If you turn over to Proverbs chapter 5, I got that here somewhere. Proverbs chapter 5, Solomon is giving advice to his son, and he has a lot to say about adultery. Take just a minute and read that. Everybody ready? My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen well to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion and your lips may preserve knowledge. For the lips of the adulteress drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths are crooked, but she doesn't even know it. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn aside from what I say. Keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your best strength to others, and your years to one who is cruel. Lest strangers feast on your wealth, and your toil enrich another man's house. At the end of your life you'll groan. When your flesh and body are spent, you'll say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers or listen to my instructors. I've come to the brink of utter ruin in the midst of the whole assembly. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in public squares, let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an adulteress? Why embrace the bosom of another man's wife? For a man's ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all his paths. The evil deeds of a wicked man ensnare him. The cords of his sin hold him fast. He will die for lack of discipline, led astray by his own great folly. He says it better than I think about anybody else, so that's why I took the time to read that. Years ago in our neighborhood, there was a bit of a scandal. One of the married men in the neighborhood had an affair with a married woman who lived nearby, who had just recently moved in with her husband. And it all boiled out and came down to a divorce in both families. And I heard later on from someone who was closer to the man that the first time he saw her, he decided he was going to have relations with her. And he went so far as to tell someone else on the street just exactly what he was going to do. So which commandment would you say was broken? Okay, the way he looked at her was one of them. And he didn't stop there. He actually committed adultery with her, and it resulted in a divorce in both households. Which one was worse? The fact that he looked on her, or the fact that he actually committed adultery? Okay, we got 4 sames came out of the crowd at the same time. Okay. The point being made is, at first, it was sort of secret sin. He looked at her and he desired her and he had lust for her. And if he'd shut his mouth, it would have been a secret sin. Same consequences as an open adultery, but it would have been less harmful on other people if he cut it there and stopped it. It would have been secret to everyone else, but he was openly bragging about it. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay. It multiplied the sin and affected more people. Okay. Right? Right. His bragging and carrying on about it would entice others to be affected. And what Sonny was saying is Steve had an article in the paper last week, this coming out this week, on divorce, so it'd be a good article for us all to get a look at. Okay. Well, actually, the consequences as far as the sin goes were all the same thing, but the consequences keep going up as far as how many people are getting pulled into this. It starts out like a little twister and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's drawing more families are being affected, more people are being tempted, thinking it's a good thing. It just goes worse and worse. There's a country song. There's a country song for everything. There's a country song says it's about a guy that's been through a divorce, and he's coming back, and he's driving down the street, and he says, "That's my house. There's my truck." I think maybe he says, "There's my dog." There's that tree I planted, but that's not me. And that's exactly what Solomon was talking about in Proverbs. All your work and all your labors as a result of this adulteress are going to be enjoyed by someone else. Someone else is going to take them over. You're going to give it all up. A stranger is going to come in and feast on your wealth and on your toil. We often look at some sins as being more offensive than others. Murder is always a biggie. We look at that like, man, you can't get any worse than murder. But we already talked about that, and we already know that hate puts you in the same position. Our courts, on the other hand, they won't try you or prosecute you for your thoughts, will they? No? No? Everybody agrees no? They will, though, consider your thoughts and intent as to the degree of the crime. So even the courts do look at our thoughts. They want to know what our intent was. Did we plot this out? Was this premeditated? Or was it self-defense? Did you go there prepared to kill somebody, or did you just happen to pick up something handy to try and protect yourself at the last minute? So even there, the courts will consider our thoughts, and they use that to determine a lot of times the sentence, how steep the sentence is going to be. Any thoughts or comments so far? Moving on then to verse 28. Jesus says, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. How come you left the women out? Doesn't this include women too? No comments? Okay, it does include women also. Whether it's older women on a TV looking at Volkswagens, or whether it's young men shopping for sports cars. Or if it's a Hardee's burger, doesn't matter. The advertisers are throwing sex into everything. Lust is viewed as normal, as desirable, something that we should work on. It's an amusing thing, and it's used to grab our attention and to sell products. But that don't make it right. Jesus is saying any man that looks on a woman lustfully has already committed adultery in his heart. And the same goes for women. If you're looking at a man lustfully, I don't know if women do that or not. They They're sort of above it all. Aren't they? Well, I think it really is scientifically known that a man is more aroused by sight than most women anyways. But women can be guilty of the same thing. Another popular song, told you there's a song for everything. This guy says, we're not exactly strangers, you and I, because I've already loved you in my mind. That's kind of what guys do. They look at women, they undress women, they love women, they fornicate all day long. They concentrate on it, they dwell on it. What's that? I missed that. Oh, that's not fair. I missed it. I'm going to have to do something about this hearing problem. But again, songs like that are the same as these commercials that we see on TV. What do they do for us? Okay. What they do is, they wear us down. They lead us to think that, okay, it really is a good thing. It really is okay. There's not really any harm in it. It's definitely natural. It's a natural thing. I mean, what the unnatural would be worse, more repulsive in my mind. But it's sweet. It's just sweet to sing that song. He's already loved her in his mind. But what did Jesus say about it all? Okay, he's calling it adultery. It is adultery. It is sin. It's same as the murder and the hate thing. Okay? Devil doing the same thing he did originally in the Garden of Eden. Making something that we know is wrong look good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It just keeps getting, it keeps drawing more and more in, and it affects a wide range of people on both families, on both sides of the problem. Any other thoughts on verses 27 and 28? Okay, Matthew 5:29 through 30. If your right eye causes you to sin, just gouge it out and throw it away. Because it's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off, throw it away. Because it's better to lose one part of your body to lose your whole body into hell. Is Jesus calling for self-mutilation? I don't see anybody chopped up around here. Self-examination? Okay. More self-control? Okay. Well, when Jesus is saying this, he's not calling for people to start chopping their bodies up, but he's pointing out exactly how serious sin is and how early it grabs you and how early you're condemned by it. It's not just, all right, you can dwell in this lust and this desire and you can spend all your time thinking about it. As long as you don't act on it, you're okay. You're not okay. You're being affected right away. You're guilty of the sin right away. It's not the eye that's gone out of control. It's not the hand that's gone crazy and doing its own thing. What's really going on? Where's the sin at? Okay, in the heart. My heart's getting a stress test right now. I can pass this one, I'll be all right. The sin's in our mind. It's in our heart. And the more we dwell on it, the more we think about it, the more enticing we let it become, the closer we get to actually committing the sin, but we're already guilty of it. You can't help thoughts that pop into your head, but you can certainly help how long you leave them sit there or how much you dwell on them. We need to get control of it. We need to be able to control our thoughts, and that is not easy. When you hit yourself with a hammer, it's not easy to control your tongue, especially if you were raised in a family that didn't use good language to begin with. My vocabulary is a lot bigger than yours, probably. It's hard to control what pops out of your mouth. Actually, what is a person's true character? How do you know a person's true character? The way they act when? There you go. What you do when no one else is looking, that is our true character. That's the character true to ourselves, what we want to do, not because, well, I better straighten up. I'm going out with Sonny tonight. But it's how I am when I'm by myself. You know, the things I allow myself to think, the things I allow myself to do, that's the true character. As far as the body thing, I'm in control of my eye, and I'm in control of my hand. This one maybe not so much yet, but it's coming along. This one's still good. But we're in control of our members. It's the mind, it's the heart, as Kathy said. Matthew 10:28 tells us not to fear those who can destroy the body, but rather to fear he who can destroy body and what? Okay, body and soul. The soul is the important part. Okay, yeah, to think on pure things. Okay, Where am I? When we're having these thoughts, they come into your head automatically, I guess, because you're a man. And they come into your thoughts, women also, I guess. I don't know. Fess up if they do or not. But it's what you do with them when they ideas pop into your head. We don't want to be toying with these thoughts and dwelling on these thoughts. This is sin if you do that. How many sins do we have to commit to be classified as a sinner? One. One a day? One a week? Okay. Prayer can help us, yes. James, right, the longer you think on it, the longer you justify it, the longer you make it seem okay, the more dangerous position you keep putting yourself. James 2:10 says, "For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles in just one point is guilty of breaking all of it." If that doesn't take away some of your self-righteous feeling, I don't know what would. If that doesn't make you feel like I really need help. I need a Savior. I need a plan. Got myself into a mess, and there's no other way that I can see to get out of it. I need help. If that doesn't straighten us out, Romans 3:23 would tell us the same thing. It says we're all sinners. It says all have sinned, all come short. We're all in the same place. There's nobody here that can stand up and say, I've never sinned. We don't have to be the judge because we're all in the same boat. So the challenge, I guess, from the lesson today would be for us to work on the purity of our hearts, which has already been mentioned. Patty mentioned the thought. We need to work on the purity of our hearts. You got a concordance in the back of your Bible? I got a little concordance in this one. Turn to the word pure. In the fine print section in the back of your Bible, you probably have an even larger list of what I have here. But the Bible has a lot to say about being pure. To the pure, show yourself pure. In Psalms, who has clean hands and a pure heart? In Psalm 51, create in me a pure heart, O God. Somebody mentioned prayer helps. This is a biggie to pray for help with. You ask God to help us to create a pure heart. Not just look good, seem good, but actually a pure heart. Can a young man, in Psalms 119, can a young man keep his way pure? Proverbs 20, verse 9. Who can say, I have kept my heart pure without sin? As we were talking about, nobody can say that and be honest with themselves. No, but we're talking about the heart. The pure heart doesn't dwell on these things that we've been talking about, these sins. The pure heart goes the opposite way. Isaiah 52, come out from it and be pure. Your eyes, just reading through the list, your eyes are too pure to look on evil. If your heart is pure, you don't go to those movies that were being talked about because you already know it's not good. You're just putting yourself in a tighter spot. We already talked in Matthew chapter 5, we talked about the Beatitudes. In verse 8 it says, "Blessed are the pure in heart." Keep yourself pure. To the pure all things are pure. To be self-controlled and pure, and the marriage bed kept pure. It goes on and on. Anybody see any other ones in your concordance that I didn't mention that you'd like to mention? Okay. I got a bookmark. There's no title on this thing. I'd say the title would probably be like another country song. You. Remember that one? Toby Keith. All you want to talk about is you. I want to talk about me. This bookmark has helped me many times making up my mind and doing the right thing. When I know what the right thing is and I just keep putting it off. We'll see if this thing strikes a chord with any of you. You say it's impossible. God says all things are possible, from Luke 18:27. You say, I'm too tired. God says, I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28-30. You say, nobody really loves me. God says, I love you. In John 3:16 and again in John 13:34. You say, I can't go on. God says, my grace is sufficient. 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9, Psalm 91:15. You say, I can't figure things out. God says, I will direct your steps. Proverbs 3:5-6. You say, I can't do it. God says you can do all things. Philippians 4:13. You say, I am not able. God says, I am able. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 8. You say, it's not worth it. God says, it'll be worth it. Romans 8:28. You say, I can't forgive myself. God says, I forgive you. John 1:9, Romans 8:1. You say, I can't manage. God says, I will supply all your needs. Philippians 4:19. You say, I'm afraid. God says, I have not given you a spirit of fear. 2 Timothy 1:7. You say, I'm always worried and frustrated. God says, cast your cares on me. 1 Peter 5:7. You say, I don't have enough faith. God says, I've given everyone a measure of faith. Romans 12:3. You say, I'm not smart enough. God says, I give you wisdom. 1 Corinthians 1:30. You say, I feel all alone. God says, I will never leave you or forsake you. Hebrews 13:5. And I got one more that over the years I thought of myself. It says, you say, someday. Someday I'll invite that person who needs to be here. Someday I'll visit the sick. Someday I'll make a meal for those who need a meal. Someday I'll be baptized. God says, do it now. 2 Corinthians 6-2. That's all I have for you.